Right. So, good morning, everyone. I'm Claire Barrett. I am the Archives Manager at Mayor Archive Collective. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We have a very special guest with us today, for anyone who does not know him, Roger Stevens. He is an incredible Baba artist, former professor, and a very special MAC volunteer. We love him very dearly. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk about your work with us today. And I will let you get started, Roger.
Thanks, Claire. I'm actually going to enjoy this because I was a college professor teaching art for 15 years. And funny thing is, I would always wing it because I have such a working knowledge of art and art history and design and all that, that it made my job pretty straightforward to just go in there and here's what we're going to talk about. And I had this, Baba would just pull up this information. So I never would do all these copious notes, but I was a very popular professor. My name's Roger Stevens, and I've been a painter since I was about 16 years old in Miami, Florida, where I grew up. My parents were Bill and Peggy Stevens. And even before we knew about Baba, I was enchanted with photography primarily. That's an interesting link I'm going to talk about. And psychedelic painting, which was very influential in the 60s for my life. And that's when I was in my formative years with art. All this leads up to the fact that my father was a photographer, and he was an ocean photographer primarily, but he always had a camera and took photos of the family and also artistic pieces. But mostly he made a living selling photographs that he took of ocean life because he was an oceanographer and a writer. So I was very familiar with photography, and he would show me basics of photography. And then when I got to high school, I was pretty adept at photography and was studying photographers like Ansel Adams and Weston and people like that, as well as beautiful landscape photographers and ocean photographers like the Cousteau guys. Then Baba came along. Baba literally came into our lives in 1969 and 1970. My dad met or was friends with Rico Berry, who had just returned from the last Darshan, and he, make a long story short, gave my father a copy of God Speaks. My father, being a scientist, went home and read it in 2 nights, and came out at breakfast and said to the whole family, my siblings and I and my mom, Mary Baba is God because only God could have written this book. I'll never forget that. That was really fun. But he and my mom took the family to meet Kitty and Elizabeth and go to the center on my 17th birthday that summer. So that was almost a year, not quite a year after we'd heard of Baba. Well, it's all over after that. As you know, the heart was open. But there is one thing about that early trip that I wanted to point out. I was 17. I was not in a search for God, although I experimented with drugs and I did some yoga and met some swamis and stuff. I wasn't really sure what God was. I knew that there was something powerful out there, obviously, and something wonderful, but I didn't really have any kind of personal experience with it. And so living with my parents, obviously, and then being introduced to Baba was monumental. And one of the things that happened was I was really interested in art. And so the first thing I wanted to do was paint Baba. And I met Lynn Ott on one of my very early trips, and Kitty encouraged me to make art. And so I felt really like, oh, I got a shoe in now. Well, that turned into a lifetime of academia, including teaching. And I got a lot better at painting Baba, which was my objective. I said, Baba, if I'm going to paint you and you are who I think you are, I really got to be a good painter. And so he laughed in my mind and said, just learn it and I'll take care of the rest. I've never made a living selling Baba paintings because I've never really tried. I've always had other vocations that provided for me. But now that I'm retired, this is the end of the introduction, by the way, folks. Now that I'm retired, all I want to do is paint Baba. I can paint anything now. Baba has turned some kind of a key for me since I retired. And I haven't practiced, but I've just done it. And I have done so much Baba painting in the last 6 or 8 years. For me, it's phenomenal because I guess when I was a working man, I never had time to just do it like I wanted. But now you'll see I've got a lot of new work. Okay, that's my intro. What I want to do today is show you some photos that I have painted. Okay, you may see some other works that some paintings in the background and things that I have done without photographs. Otherwise, other word, projecting or drawing it, because I learned all that stuff in school. But the photos came about, the painting of the photographs came about I ended up with mountains of photographs since my early years because Hermes Lawrence Ryder was one of my best friends in Miami. And as you know, most of you may know, Hermes Lawrence Ryder still is known as producing the finest photographs of Baba in the world, pretty much because he used archival material, he used original negatives. Everything had to pass muster with him. So Monty had told him he couldn't release any photos that were imperfect. They had to all be perfect, no flaws, no overexposure, no underexposure. So he did that all his life. And whenever he had a bad one, he would give it to me. It was wonderful. He would sign it on the back in pencil with my name. And that way he would know it was separate from the ones that he could sell. And he would give me big piles of these every few months, which is an incredible boon because they are, to me, they're as good as any of his work. And I got them by Baba's grace for free, which is really sweet. I'm going to actually manipulate this. Don't let it break your heart. I've got several excellent copies of it, but I'm going to turn it into a painting for you guys. I hope not all today, but that's the first stage there. Okay, the next up is the big reason that I started painting photos is I had so many that were damaged or that were faded or that were a poster or something I got in the glow that I just had put aside because it was so wonderful. I didn't want to, toss it or put it in the pile with the glow magazines. Ever since I was really young with Baba, I was scolded by people like Mansari to never throw away a photo of Baba. So it just became part of my life that I never threw them away. I just saved them. And I have boxes and boxes of cards and illustrations and paintings, but mostly photos of Baba, which I have a hard time throwing away. And I never seem to get around to making the dooney and burning them all I realize now why. I've been taking old photos. This is one from the 70s that we had in Miami. I'll show you this. This came out really nice. And I never much cared for this because the background was always washed out. It's somewhere in England in 32, I believe. And but when I colorized it somehow brought it into the present. And I really had a lot of fun. Not to mention, I had a great time working out some of the background stuff with color. Because you don't get anything in the faded black and white of this. So this was just here. Oh, by the way, I had this for the season. This is Baba and the Great Pumpkin. Let me see if I can get that straight. Okay. So I am going to show you a few before I get started. That way I can pique your interest and you will have some questions and ideas about what I'm doing. This one I just did recently. At the Southeast Gathering last year, I created a large backdrop using Baba's flag as a beginning point. And it was very popular. And I like the idea, too, because it's not a blatant Baba flag. It's just sort of the rainbow that Baba described. It's a little different, as you can tell. But it worked great for the gathering. So I had this photograph of Baba on a throne somewhat with the crown. And I don't know, you can see some details there. But then I just used my painting styles in the background and made it somewhat surreal. Great fun, though. Can't even tell you. I'm going to get up for just a second because I've got a couple of others over here I wanted to show you. Let's see, those are all paintings. I've got a large pile of works in progress. For example, this is one I hope to work on a little bit today. Here, this is a real good example of a recycling. This was on a poster for the Southeast Gathering. I think Ed Legum took care of it or something about 20 years ago, maybe even 30 years ago. And it was just a thing that just said Avatar Mayor Baba, and it had this great picture, but it was blown up to this size. And it had a pretty hard screen on it, a printing screen. You could see in the background. It was great. And at the end of the gathering, I gathered up all the leftover posters and brought them home. So I have about 6 or 8 of these, and I just periodically paint them. This one, you say, oh, it looks finished. It's in a frame and all that. Brings up the next point. What I often do with the Baba photos, since I have so many sizes and styles of them, is I often frame or choose a frame before the painting is ever done. Because I was a picture framer in Maui for 12 years, and I fell in love with good quality wooden frames. So now, this one, for example, back here, you can see not only did I find a nice wooden frame at a thrift store, but I used this washi tape, and embellished it so that you get beautiful little Arabic types, designs. And it took a regular wooden frame and kind of just transformed it into something special. So I've been doing quite a lot of that also. In addition, some of you know of my Baba buttons. This is a large one. And this is a good example of painting Baba pictures. Okay. This was given to me by Al Grasso, and it's a pretty large button. And so he had some problems, selling these and giving them away. But I said, and also it was badly faded. Sometimes they come from India and they look rough. So he graciously gives me a lot of his reject ones. And so just the other day, I started repainting this one. It's a black and white, and you all are very familiar with the image, I know. But one of the wonderful things you can do with painting, even a Baba button or something, is you can eliminate background details that take away from the image somewhat. And you can also, this is a scary one, but this comes with a lifetime of painting. I can also sometimes successfully take Baba's eyes when they're looking to the side, and I can turn them toward me. And when I do, it's like, wow, you're in the room, So that may happen with this one. I don't. Here are a couple. This is one that is almost complete. Now we're getting into, it's hard for me not to describe a little bit about the process when I'm showing you the pieces, because they're all at different stages of completion. This is, there again, just a poster, okay? Now, this is what's exciting, folks. This is not mounted, okay? It's just a poster, and you can see I'm having no problems painting it, okay? So this one is kind of light. You'll notice it's not richly colored like some of the others, but that's generally the process when I'm painting these Baba photos. Is if you get too carried away with color early on, it may dominate the piece. You want it to look natural and photographic. So what I generally do on these, I can't help it. I usually start with Baba's face because I want to see that every time I look at the work. So I tend to, even since time immemorial, since I started painting Baba, I cannot stay away from his face and his eyes when I begin. I've learned to get away from that in bigger paintings because it sometimes will dominate so much that I can't work on the painting because Baba's looking at me all the time. I know that sounds funny, but it's kind of true. Anyway, this is a very famous piece, and you can see I've taken some liberties with the background, some painterly liberties, which is one of the best things about this process, because you're combining being a painter with making the photograph of Baba as natural and realistic as you can. So you can say I took some liberties with the couch there, but this is a wonderful experience painting Baba's hands or coloring them, because most of us have a really hard time drawing and painting hands, even those artists among you. So drawing them and coloring them and shading them has been a very good lesson for me about how Baba's hands actually work. So there's one. This process also is good for old funky artwork that you were never able to throw away. This is a stencil painting that I did when I was about 18 or 19. So that's 50 years ago. And you can see there's bits of glitter in it and purple. And if I look at it now, I can see it's not that far from looking like Baba, because I probably made the stencil from an actual Baba photo, transferred it on here, and then tried to glump the paint through it. So this is how it looks. But my technique now allows me to opaquely change the areas like the eyes that are too heavily purple, put details into the hair. Maybe not so much that it looks like a photograph, but just that it's a little better than it was 50 years ago. You might say, these are special things that you did 50 years. Not to me. The closer they get to Baba, the happier I am. And I own them. I've not given them to anyone. I love to take my old work that has great potential and extend it. This is a print that I did in college. So this is in the 70s. And this was based on a Vermeer. And this is an intaglio print. Well, it worked. It's pretty neat. It's based on Vermeer's Letter from a Lover, I think it was called. And that's what I call it anyways, because that's what it is for me. Baba standing before the window in the famous Dutch painting by Vermeer. I just changed everything and did this with intaglio. So it's with biting acid. So there's not a lot of control. There's a little bit of reflection in Baba's face in the window. It's okay. But what I did years later, not too long ago, at the beginning of this painting photo things, is I primed this with a special material and then went into it with colored pencil and inks and watercolor. And now it's a color intaglio that's been enhanced beyond being an intaglio. So it's working on being a painting. There was some problems with Baba's face that I didn't draw very well 50 years ago, but it's getting closer now. You may see some of these out in the world. I've done a few of them, but this is also perfect kind of work for carrying it out with colored pencil and paint markers, which are now, I'm going to give an overview of the process because time is ticking away. Here's one that is just starting. This is a large photo of Baba, and this has been kind of interesting too. This is, when I was younger, this is the kind of photo I didn't like of Baba, I have to say, when I was a teenager and stuff. Baba looked like, meaty and, it's not his usual style. He's not looking at you. But over the years, especially in the last few years, I've become very drawn to these photos because the humanistic side of Baba has become much, much more important rather than the romanticized images of Baba from the 20s and 30s. This kind of stuff, and not to mention, there's a lot more to do. Now, one of the problems is, do I make the painting, I'm sorry, I'm moving it a bit. Do I make the painting just Baba, which I probably will, because this information in the background is fragmented. So I can do one of my backgrounds, rich background, and probably will lose Francis back here. Or I could make it a picture of Baba and Francis, but since Francis isn't looking at Baba, that doesn't really appeal to me. But you'll notice you say, this is not a black and white photo. Well, what I did was, the first stage that I'm going to show you is take this large black and white photo and coat it with a magic substance, what I think is, because it's transformed my painting, called a pastel ground. It's also called a grit ground or a sand base. What that allows, this has already been coated with the stuff. So you're making a sandy, listen to this. This photograph now has a sandy surface that has been applied with a liquid paste that is, when I first did it, I said, oh, I'm going to lose the image of Baba. You can see that I did not at all. But now the photo is ready to take colored pencil, uh, acrylic, oil paint, anything you want, chalk, crayon, literally anything. I try to use very subtle, very natural materials like colored pencil to bring out the flesh tones. But you can see, what's the pink? Well, a lot of time when I start these pieces, I have large areas to cover, like Baba's pink coat, like the pillows, like even his flesh on his face, sometimes his hand, the flowers. So I will paint them first just with a flat acrylic so that when I start working on the details, I've already got the base of the color. So this is interesting. I'm going to try and catch this. Up here, I stopped using this stuff. So it's real slick like a photograph. You can see how the lights are reflecting on it. And then when it gets to the stuff, look how Baba is holding up with it, even with the reflection. So Baba's face has this material on it. Okay, enough said. This is my own that I put in a small container. It is a pastel ground, gritty, sandy. I just did that for you guys and for me to remember. And it lives in my paint box. And when I get ready to paint something, I simply coat it with this material, and then I can start my painting. And all of these have now been covered with that material. Here's that other one, undone. So you can see some of the changes that have occurred in the photo in the one that I'm working on. This is mostly colored pencil. Some acrylic to get the background, but you can see how I eliminated the background confusion, especially this stuff on the other side of Baba's hands, a little confusing. Just kind of minimize that, brought out his sleeve. Okay, so you're starting to see the possibilities. This is another example. This was a simple a drawing I did of Baba using a projector. I had a picture of Baba and I popped it in my phone and I projected it onto this paper. I wanted to see how the tooth of the paper was, and it's a little slick for my preference. So I did the thing and I kind of just scribbled it while it's being projected. And I pulled it out and I says, oh, that's nice. Looks just like Baba. But over a while, I've had it for a year or two. It's starting to get smudged from the charcoal. And it's not quite done to my satisfaction. So what I'm going to do is spray it to fix it. Those artists among you know what that means. Fix it means anything that's very soft and comes off easily, like charcoal, needs to be set before you can work on it without smearing it. Because right now, if I put my hand in it, it would smear. So I just simply fix it. Okay, this is the process, folks. And this doesn't have to be done with photos, but it does have to be done with certain art. And then I coat it with this stuff, which goes on. I think I'm prepared to show you this. If you can bear with me, I've got a big brush here. I've got the material right here. Okay. And please don't be shocked. I do know what I'm doing. Don't try this at home, kids. This lovely, lovely, one of my absolute favorite pictures of Baba here is going to become a painting. Okay. Now, what I wanted to show you also is, look, these other pieces are mounted, okay, for framing. But if you are careful and use this goop without a lot of water, you can continue working on this without it being mounted, which is kind of fun for those of us that have limited space. You can have a whole folder of these things begun and just open them up and color them someday. So here's the photo. Please don't be shocked. I have great promise for this. Let's get it right here. So it looks cloudy when you put it on. And this material, you can find it under the name of pastel ground, because it was designed so that you can do pastels on paper or whatever, and it gives it a tooth. See, I'm just doing the image area, not the edges so much, but that's all I have to do. It's done now. Okay, I'm just taking the brush strokes and minimizing it. Looks like it's gotten cloudy, but it will improve greatly as it dries. One more thing, when I'm in production mode, I like to have a fan. Okay, so it's done. So you can see it still looks gray, a little cloudy. It will clear out extensively, and then I will be able to work on it with just about any medium, which is the exciting part of this. Anybody that's ever tried to paint anything on a photograph, we talked about Pondy earlier. I'll come back to that in a second. Notice that the painting, the surface of photographs is not ideal for doing any kinds of painting, but this makes it ideal. So what I was going to say is I put this in front of the fan, and it'll be ready before this presentation is over. So I can show you, I can start working on it with colored pencil. That's where the real magic happens. So I put that in front of the fan, and there's one over there that I just am working on too. This was a ancient one, very famous photo of Meher Baba, and not the most influential photo of Baba in my life, but for many people it was. So this was a Hermes, and it was also a Regent. I'm not sure why it had some little flaw or something. So I've always had it as the oval. You know, I've framed it as ovals. I've got one in the house framed as an oval. Well, for the painting, I said, you know what? I've got this is an excellent size for a frame, 11 by 14, I believe. And I decided to try to get rid of the oval, which was a little bit challenging. As you can see, the paper was just thick enough to create an image of the oval on the paper, on the board. This is a piece of gator foam, which does, as you can see, is wonderful because it does not warp. It's not like cardboard at all, or even wood. This is a very thin one, 3/16. But what I did after I mounted the picture, then I realized that I'm still seeing the edge of the oval. So I put a bunch of modeling paste, acrylic modeling paste, and when I go back into a color, I think I'll probably mostly be able to get rid of the edge of it. But here you can see extensive coloration in Baba's face. Look how lifelike it becomes. And this is a result. This is a black and white photo that I've painted now. There's very little paint on this, but I've used colored pencil, and I've used about 8 or 10 different flesh tones, light and dark, to get this lifelike impression. So this one's still in process. This will take another hour or two to finish. But you can see getting to that point is pretty easy. You're coating it, and then you're just coloring it. And those of you that have ever worked with colored pencil probably didn't have a great experience. That's just my guess. Because colored pencil has to have a surface to bite for it to get rich. I don't know if any of you have ever looked at art magazines and seen ads for colored pencils where the artwork they're featuring looks like a painting. You're like, it's not colored pencil, no way. You know, what do they do? What do they add to it? What do they have? You know, you really don't have to add much. You just have to have a good bite with the colored pencil to work. I think I can show you a really good example of that. Oh, here's another one. Still in the gallery. This one I just did last week, and I'm so tickled with. This one was a photo that was kind of blurry. You remember the original one? And it was black and white. So I had fun working on it. I created a new background. I worked on his hair, made it feel like it was held back by the tiara thing, and had a great time with the coat, which has got little floral design on it. Anyway, I love this. And here's another example. I found this discount frame at a thrift store in Myrtle Beach, and it's exquisite. It's all carved wood and stuff. So there's another one. Getting back to the process. All right, we can use this one, which is still in process. So this has the coating on. Hear that? So it's like very fine sandpaper. Now I'm going to use this orange only because I know this is where you have to be brave, artists. you can change anything. So what you do, you're not bound to. So this is something that I used to deal with my students. You need to be willing to reach for the next level on the ladder, even if you're sacrificing something that you're very attached to. That's one of the most important things about art. So my students, when I taught, had to be schooled in preciousness, but preciousness in art has a different term than it does to us Bible lovers. Preciousness is the inability to go beyond where one is because one thinks it's so special. The inability to, oh, I could never sell that painting. It's my best ever. That's a sense of preciousness. For us, the preciousness is in reproducing an image of Baba that speaks to us, or that I can give to a friend and just see that recognition in their eyes. That's the best. So our preciousness has to do with the original photo. It has to do with how carefully we're pulling it out. Most photos of Baba, nearly all of them, have multiple copies out there online, in publications. So when you go after a photo like this, you remember that if it was damaged or if it was, then, by the way, I do want to mention this one thing. One should never take a precious photo of Baba and do this too until one makes a copy of it or talks to an archivist, because what we're doing is not archival work particularly. We're just doing fine artwork with Baba's photo. So let me just show you. This is just a standard barrel Prismacolor pencil. And you think, oh, I'm not going to be able to do much. Watch just a highlight of Baba's hair. Just a little orange. If you can see that clearly. But see how I'm being kind of random and like, oh, you're going to mess it up. It's so easy to fix. You can rub it with your finger. You can rub it with a Q-tip. You can remove any marks with alcohol, okay? The acrylic will not be affected by the alcohol, rubbing alcohol, but it'll take the colored pencil off. So if you make a mistake, that's how you erase it. It's just like a liquid eraser. Another thing is the alcohol will also soften paint marker and take paint marker off the image, which is one of the next materials we're going to talk about. Do we need to take a break? Ask them questions? Claire, are you there?
Hi, I'm here.
Hi. Anybody want to ask any questions so far? No? Okay. I'm going to go steam ahead. And if they come up, I'll hear them. So I did want to mention this one aspect. I can't really move this thing without boogering it all up, but my studio is full of picture frames. And this was the result of when I moved to Hawaii in about 2003. I became a picture framer because it was some work I could do, and Baba just allowed me to excel in it and make good money, which I never thought I'd do in Hawaii. But I learned a lot about picture framing, but I also learned the value of already made frames that are the right quality. These days, as you'll notice in any thrift store, most condo art is framed in plastic that looks like wood. So you've got to be really careful not to get that crap. It's just horrible. It's not really reparable. Whereas some of the frames and things I get are totally repairable with wood putty and paint and things like that. And I'm looking for the more classical look of paintings because I know the Mondali, and most Baba lovers I've spoken to prefer a gold frame or some gold in a frame for Baba, but also a quiet frame like this. I told you that I sometimes choose the frame before I finish the work, and this one just cried out for it because it had this wonderful gray and a kind of a mauve trim. I mean, not mauve, a kind of a neutral creamy trim. Just seemed to go real well with it. while I've got this up here, this would be a good opportunity for me to show you how I would continue on this, which you can see the marks of the colored pencil. Notice how, unlike many paintings, myself, I'm as bad as anyone, tends to shortchange the number of colors they use in Baba's face. When you're working with colored pencil, you can be pretty free to try other colors in the shadows or in the defining parts of Baba's face. Because it's easy to remove. It's not messy like oil paints, and it's not permanent like acrylic. So what I'm going to do here, I think that I need to bring some of the highlights out of Baba's face. So on the nose, on the eyebrow. So I've chosen a pink. You might say, some of these zooms go into where the artist goes into the exact colors that they use to reproduce something. I'm not that kind of person at all. I have mountains of colored pencils and I have mountains of paint markers. And I just experiment every time. If I need a light pink, I will choose 2 or 3 light pinks, even going into a yellow, to try and get these highlights on Baba's face. Now, I'm going to hope I can do this so you can see it. Well, this is just one I chose because it's at a middle to done state. The background, by the way, was primarily painted with paint. You can see up in this area, it's still almost the gray of the photograph. And if you were to look carefully, you can actually see the screen of the printing where it was from an old poster. But here, for me, I've taken it and taken this old poster and made it worthy of my wall of my house. Now, I may go in and get Baba to look at me, and this is a great photo because he was laughing at something that somebody said off the side. So I'm probably not going to mess with his eyes that much. But I've got a light pink. Let me just see if it's going to work. Oh, yes. Can you see that? A little bit brighter there. Yeah, you can see it there. See it? It's a little lighter there. So you can see how subtle it is. So you know how Baba in the accidents had a few scars on his forehead. So you can kind of play around with that. Notice it's so subtle. Now I could go in with white. Here I need to make his nose has gotten a little bit dark, so I'm going to enhance it with this bright white. It's not really a white, sort of a pinkish white. It's very light. Pick up on the cheeks. And all this comes from, obviously, you not having spent a lifetime painting Baba, most likely. We'll need to use another sample, a good copy of the photo, so you can see, oh, there's a little highlight, because a lot of times you'll get so much paint and color on here that you can't really tell what's the original photo and what you painted. I'm looking at it in the picture and I notice there's a nice highlight here, but this side doesn't have it. So I'm actually doing this remote. So all I'm going to do is just add this. This makes Baba squint. His eyes shine a little. It's a little dark under his eyes. So this is the part that is so much fun. When you start to see your Baba coming out, you start to see him come alive, especially the ones like this where he's looking at you. Sometimes I just get overcome and can't finish working that night. I'm always excited to come out and see what happened the night before. So this is white, and I get extras of these because I can take any color and go over it with a thin coating of the white, and then I can rub it with a burnisher. A burnisher is just simply a piece of rolled up cardboard, which allows you to blend here's one. So it's just a piece of rolled up cardboard that allows you to blend. If I get see, I think this line in Baba's nose is a little hard, so I'm just going to soften all that. Do you see that change? It's not quite as hard of a line here. It's the same. Just going to toe that down a little in here. And see, so it's like, it's a blender. It's a blending stuff. Now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add a little highlight to Bob's nose, which is not coming quite as far forward as I was like. I'm trying to figure out where the light came from in the original photo. It came pretty much from up above. So I'm adding the white on top of that thing I did in pink. And I'm also adding white up here to get the reflection of the light on Baba's forehead. And then into the nose. A little reflection on the nostrils. You see the difference? Starting to come together. See how it's a little more nicer than when we started? Notice this line here needs a little work. So I soften it. I'm not really looking at it. I'm looking at you. But you do enough of this and you become very natural with the colored pencils, so you're not afraid of them. Most tools, paint tools, if you're not careful, they'll mess up your painting quickly. I've found that all my life, and especially in teaching. When you put a glob of paint on there, if you've not really considered it, it may overtake your work. So this color pencil technique, the bad thing about color pencils is they always looked wimpy when you did them earlier in life, right? This is the opposite. The wimpiness is working for you on top of other richer colors, okay? Some more things to show you, I think. How are we doing on time? Oh. Oh, yeah. Some reasons to do what I do. Okay, I have, as most of us, as most of the Bible lovers that are attending this have, we have lots of precious photos and posters, flyers. This is a great thing to do with them rather than burn them in the duty. It's very simple to take, just, let's take something like the universal message. This is a very special photograph for me in the universal message. There was a large copy of the photo that was used of Baba in the World's Fair, 1962, five, I think. And it's the picture in the universal message. Baba has a simple white sajda, no background, just looking directly into the camera. When I was 17 years old and I had gone on my first trip to the center, naive, as we all are, I went to a talk by either Kitty or Elizabeth or Jane. I'm not sure which one. It was a long time ago. But what struck me was I wasn't into the talks that much. There were stories of somebody that I hadn't really found. And I was sitting in the library, Saroja Library. I'm not sure if it was Kitty or Elizabeth that was talking. Could have been both of them. And I kept looking at the photograph from the World's Fair that was on the wall, that one that's in the Universal Message. That's the original one that they used in the Universal Message. It came alive for me. And I had never in my life had a photograph come alive. I'm 17 years old. And not alive like in color, but it just like I suddenly realized that who Baba was, that he could come through this painting and look right into me. And it shook me to my core. And I only remembered that story pretty recently because I found an old beat up copy of that photograph and I turned it into a painting. And I realized how special that photograph was. Anyway, this is a good example of how one can take something that's meant something to you your whole life and give it a little extra juice. One thing I did want to point out is very important, and the folks with the archive wanted me to tell you, don't ever work on something that's precious or maybe precious. Like I said, make a reproduction of it. Use something that is disposable. Really, old posters, old flyers, anything like that is a great place to start. Not only that, I think I have something interesting to show you. So I have a large Baba family. One of my good friends is Al Grasso, who does the Baba buttons in Myrtle Beach. And we've had I may have mentioned that he gives me buttons and things that are unacceptable. This is a Baba button that was from a painting by, I believe it's Pam Rubenstein out in California. Well, what happened, because this happens frequently with buttons, is the image got extremely faded. And the only thing that was left when Al gave me this button was the blue, this blue that you see right in here. So Baba's hair was blue, the background was blue, everything was blue. It was okay, but it just didn't make it. So I went into it and started using marker and colored pencil after I had primed it with that material that I showed you. Now I can paint on it now. And so this was important thing here is that it's not my art, but it is now. The button wasn't very nice. It didn't look good. No one probably would have liked to wear it. Pam, I'm sure, I didn't ask her anything, but bringing Baba to life in full color, I never hesitate. If it's something that I can improve and make look more like Baba or have a richness to it, I'm down with it. Okay. Now this is one I wanted to show you. This is a fairly recent one, a large one that I just did from scratch. So this is not from a photo. And what I do is I use photographs to launch myself into this, and then I play with, let me get a good picture of this. I play with markers, paint markers, and because they go on very crisp edged, and the colored pencil I still have to coat, whereas the paint markers work pretty well. Did want to show you, I have a wonderful story. I did an original Baba button like this one here, but it was from the 1932 silhouette of Baba, similar to the one that's in Baba's house in Myrtle Beach. And I got it before Artie. I was staying in India. I got it before Artie, and I knew what to do to finish this Baba button. And that was small, it was a little smaller than this one. And Artie's getting close. It's still 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and I finished it up. Oh, it's so sweet. I was so proud. And I put it on my shirt, and I went down to the Samadhi. And yes, I'm going to show you the paint markers in just a second. And Jal Dastor came up to me and said, oh, I like that Baba button. I'll trade you this one for it. And when this is a photograph that he had just, as the trust, head of the trust, he had these printed up. And he was wearing it. And he took his off, and he says, I'll give you this one for yours. In my ego, this was the only 2018, I think it was. I said, are you kidding? All the work I put into this? And it didn't take me but about 30 seconds as Jal walked away for me to realize the stupidity of my reply. Here's someone, the new Baba, that's given me so much in terms of Baba. And I should have just given him the button, which I have done so many times. I've given hand-painted Baba lovers. Thing is, I had already given him a button. I guess I was thinking, oh, you've already got one, Anyway, immediately, so when I realized that he was going to offer me his for this one, I just gave it to him. And he loved it. He smiled real big. But Baba told me that's what I needed to do. One more. I'm going to show you paint markers here in a second. I've got a huge collection, and they're great for the final points on things like this. Notice let's see if I can get some good light. You can see that. See that? The marks on Baba's face, they're very small. Here's some of my finger to give you an idea. So these fine tip paint markers that I use are great because they have a very fine tip and they come out totally opaque. Now, what I've done in the last year or two since I've fallen in love with paint markers, some of you may remember that I did a paint marker workshop at the Southeast Gathering because I became so enthralled with how one could decorate Baba buttons, could decorate frames, could do paintings with these paint markers. So I have collected hundreds. And luckily, on Amazon, especially, there are all kinds of Chinese companies producing these things at a very good rate. The way to get them inexpensively is to buy the sets. Unfortunately, in the sets, there's colors that you may not use, but you get a good selection. So this is culled down from about 3 different sets. I want to just show you guys this. Oh, that's coming across real good in color. These are my portrait ones. So you can see there's every kind of fleshy pink, and there's dark browns and reds and some golds and some tans and whites and pale yellows. So this is a set that I specifically put together for Baba buttons, okay? And so you don't really need to know any of this kind of stuff. There are a number of excellent companies out there. The best company, the most expensive, is called Posca, Posca, and they make at least 4 different sizes of every color, and they make a huge range of colors. Number one, very expensive Japanese materials. They do last a lot longer than the others, but there's a little sticker shock associated with them. So it's good to have a set of them because they're great for the larger sizes. I can fill in a big area of color. I can actually write on glass. I can write on my car window with them. They're that opaque, and they're broad tipped. These, on the other hand, that I'm using for the buttons are quite small. You can see, there it is. And as long as I use it delicately, I can actually use it on this. And I know you guys are saying, oh, this is brazy. Somebody's not even used it on. You have control on this. Remember, folks, you can go forward, you can go back. It's not like done, okay, until you say it. So now I'm using this, and I test it, make sure it's flowing well. And this is a bright little pink. It should be brighter. Yes, you can see that it's brighter than the colored pencil. Now you might say, oh, what about, do these materials work together? Yes, yes. The paint markers will pretty much go over it. Now, if it's too linear, I'm just going to brush it down lightly with my finger. And then let's see, I'm doing this upside down. That's a little challenging. I've often noticed that the light picks up on this little bit of skin. Sorry about that. Right there, see where I just did that? Right there. So that's part of Baba's smile wrinkles, which are important, obviously. Every part of Baba's, I hope this bee doesn't sting me. Got a yellow jacket here. You all see that? You want this yellow jacket? Anyway, now that's pink. One of the things that when you get going and you'll notice, oh, I'm having so much fun, is you got to remember that you've got lots of colors. So even though something's working real good like this color is, look how it brought Baba's nose up. And I can get right in here in between, make sure it's flowing well. See, it got a drop on my hand. You see how opaque it is there on my thumb? So you do have to be careful not to get carried away with the opacity of it. But you can go over it with the colored pencil. Now, Baba's eye here is a little bit dark. Notice the whites of his eye are a little, I'm just going to hit it a touch, just a touch, almost like a paintbrush. And Baba's eyes got brighter that fast. So the important thing, folks, I really hope you try this. It's not that special. This is not something that I am a master of or anything. It's just time spent rendering Baba's face has turned into finding the best materials, because I have an endless supply of imagery. There's so many wonderful photographs of Baba. This is my meditation. I sometimes will spend 3 or 4 hours at night sometimes. I'll just get going, and everything that comes to hand wants to be treated this way. I'll go through, it's almost dreadful for me to go through boxes of Baba photos and memorabilia, because I'll find, oh, I know what I could do with this. I could add this, and I can add this. One more little thing before we ask any more questions. The paint markers are a big new fad, okay? So they're easy to find and easy to purchase. You can even go so far as to go to a place like Cheap Joe's. There's one in Nashville, and I'm sure there's a Hobby Lobby in Myrtle Beach. These places will have a good selection of paint markers. They're not as cheap as they are on Amazon, of course, but sometimes you'll have an opportunity to try them, and I think you're going to really like them. Not to mention, because of their opacity, you can literally paint an image of Baba or a figure of Baba or a masculine certitude or a religious symbol on top of anything you choose. Your car, your shirt, your hand. I mean, back in the 80s, I did a portrait of Baba on Adrienne Chamazon's head in these markers and things. And they she said people at Amartya were doing darshan to her hand. That was my first meeting with Adrienne. That's kind of a fun story. But I'm looking at this from where I started when I first showed you guys. I don't know if you can see the details, a tiny bit that I've done to it. Like in the nose, I could move some of that white over and make it a little broader on the nose. But notice how the hair has just gotten started, okay? And so you can see some dark marks in the hair. And you can see the photo of the wiry gray hair flowing around in the background. This is something that's perfect for the paint markers. So all one does is select a good light gray, and then I can show you this too. Finally. Sorry about that. So I have a massive thing on the wall that has all the colors of these are sticking out. So here's a gray one, very pale, warm gray, kind of a French gray, if you can see that color. The colors are pretty good on the caps of them. By the way, these Chinese sets, these end up getting down to around 35 cents a piece, these markers. So when they're new, get out of here, Yellow Jacket. Baba, don't sting. This is the top of my thing. I just wanted to show you how fine it can be. Whoops. See that fine line? That is opaque, okay, on black. See that? Very fine and permanent. So when I'm doing Baba's hair, I go with a fairly new light gray, and here's this. And one of the things that's missing is those delicate differentiations of hairs. So, I'm going to do a little. I hope this is coming across. It's really hard to see, I know, but I'm doing individual hairs, and I'm also letting them flow out into the background. So they somewhat dissolve the barrier between Baba and the background. That's very important in art, that Baba's not a stark cartoon figure against the background. He's part of all of it. So I don't know if you can see, but here's a good thing. You can see those like there, those little lines. So now Baba's hair in this area, you can see, is doing a lot better than it is over here. Okay? So this is just a thin, and you can see it's just going great right over the paint and everything, just a crisp little line. So this is the stuff that you couldn't really do unless you were a really good painter before. But these markers literally will come out with a fine little needle line that's permanent. So you can work right on top. Here, you might be able to see a little better on the mustache. Let's give a few wild hairs. Now, let's say got a little carried away. Just touch it before it dries. Calms it right down. See that? Okay, on the other side now. Here, put a few stray ones in the eyebrows. Now remember, you're using gray, so it's pretty safe to do other things on here, but the more you keep in mind, you want to use the color that you need. Notice, see how this is, seeing those gray hairs come alive here. This piece right here is a little too blue. Y'all see that right there? So this is what I'm going through I'm evaluating as I go, and I'm adding and subtracting. One more hint, and I think we could open it up for a few more questions, is you'll notice the chaos in this studio of having a good 20 or 30 bobble pieces going on at once. I found this to be extremely productive. This one, by the way, is by hand, just from looking at a photograph, and then I used some of my abstract background stuff, and I just painted the baba over it. So it's almost done now. I got to work on it a little bit more, but it's got great little texture. And this is all paint marker. I don't know how well you can see all the paint marker stuff. So this is an example of something that you may have in a drawer. This was a reproduction of a scratch board by my father, Bill Stevens. And he and my mom put out these cards. So basically what you would, and these were part of my legacy. I've got lots of my dad's stuff. So this is what you got in the mail. Okay. And it's a scratch board reproduction on black. This kind of thing is ideal going after with the colored pencils and the markers, because not only is it pretty accurate to Baba, but you can add color, you can add fine lines, you can add background with the colored pencils or with the markers. So one of the things I was hoping to do with this thing today was inspire you to look outside the box. There's so many things that we have. I know for me, over 50 years of Baba, I have so much stuff that is precious to me, but not so precious that it's hanging on my wall or is in the case, with Baba Sandra. I just have boxes of this stuff. And part of it is my profession. I was a painter. I love photographs. I'm friends with Hermes. But every time I tell this story about what I'm doing these days, I just got back from Myrtle Beach day yesterday. People say, "Oh, I got a big box of that stuff. Do you want it?" So you can see I'm not asking you, because there's just too much out there. All of us that have been with Baba for years have piles of this wonderful stuff. And I'm trying to encourage you to step outside the box and go through those things. And the ones that speak to you, the Baba images that speak to you, but you probably wouldn't hang it on your wall because it's out of focus. It's too light. It's got a tear in one corner. This is the stuff. This is the fodder for this process. By the way, here's that one I started with. It dries very fast. Oh, I did want to mention, those of you that are in Myrtle Beach have a little different situation. It did rain here a little last night, but we had a couple of weeks without rain. And generally our humidity is a lot lower than Myrtle Beach. If you're doing these processes in Myrtle Beach, you really need a fan, or you really need some sun to dry the stages between. What happens if you get over anxious? This I just coated. Now look at that. That's got listen. Do you hear that? It's like sandpaper. It's like 600 grit sandpaper. So now I can start right away. We'll do this in just a second with colorizing this. Okay. What I was going to say about Myrtle Beach is when I painted there over the years, I've done that many times, especially when I've gotten to stay on the center. It's a wonderful place to set up. Twin A is a perfect cabin for it. Lantern is great. If you've got a cabin where you can do it, it's kind of tough to do it in the refectory because everybody wants to see what you're doing. Same with the kitchen. But anyway, painting in Myrtle Beach with acrylics is completely different than anywhere I've ever been. I literally would paint a painting And I come back and it was literally still wet in the morning. And that's unheard of with acrylics. When I paint with acrylics like this stuff moments ago, it's dry. Uh, Partly because I put it in front of a fan, partly because it's not real thick on here. But if you live in a dry place, you may want to mist everything, literally, with a little water mister. These are alcohol, but these work great for misting with water. Keep the surface moist. Generally, the process I do is in stages. So I want them good and dry between the stages. Because now let's say I go into this. Here we have a nice, safe, warm, brownish tone. I just want to see how it's going to work. It's a little orange, but I'm going to use a middle area. And probably ought to start on Baba's hand to be a little safer. Look at, you see the tiny bit of color I just put there on the chin. I don't know if you can or not. It can be so subtle. Watch this. This is just barely touching Baba. And because of this coarseness, look how suddenly the warmth is coming out of it. And you don't even see any of the color pencil, but it's coming alive. See how natural that looks already? So this was the Kamali coat. And good luck getting the color of that one right. Kamali coat, this is just my own theory. I swear it looks different every photograph I've ever seen it in. I guess because Bobby wore it for so many years. But at this point, I think this is about, Hermes didn't write a date, but I had to guess it's 39, 40. Anyway, the Kamali coat, as you know, in the later years was all patched up. At this point, you can just see a few buttons that have changed. And he wore the coat over his Sadra and shirts, whatever are there. And here's the white of his Sadra Jama bottoms there. So let me just add a little more color so you can get a little more excited. And this time I'm going to go with a little bit more of a pink. You notice that has a little orangish feel. So now, I hope y'all can see this well. I've got this set up so that this is a little pink. Notice I can go right back over those orange shades. Notice the subtle, let's see if I can get a good picture, coloration of the pink going right over that brown. And this is facing away from me. I can press down more and get a good rich color. With this pink, it would have to be on the lip, or it would have to be on the cheek, or it would have to be right next to the eye. So I often use this pink for details in Baba's pink coat, but on the face, I have to be a little more careful. On the face, the areas that I want this are on the lip right here, just a little. Don't get carried away. I'm doing this upside down, so I can screw it up. Now you're going, how can you do this? This is a special picture of Baba. Remember one more time, say it. I'm not ruining it. There are more. It is precious because of who it is. And it's precious because it belongs to me, and he's given it to me. But it's been sitting in a file. And next week, it's going to be in a picture frame. And it's going to be, oh, God, what a beautiful picture of Baba. As wonderful as these wonderful black and whites are, trust me, I cherish them so. The ability to bring them alive, to give them this color, this color, has been just real eye-opening. Enough that I wanted to share it with Baba lovers. And I'm gonna do this, probably a workshop very similar to this at the Southeast Gathering this year. It's quite portable, this process, as you can imagine. And it's really meant a lot to me to get these images to this. Here's another one. This was one of the first ones. I've always loved this image of Baba, but it got really damaged. It had a fold in it, and the size, whoops, sorry about that. The size from here to here was a standard frame size, but I needed it to be this wide. So can you see I joined a piece of paper to this photograph? You can see the line up, and you're going, how in the world? Well, what I did was I mounted it, this photograph, which is a incredible photograph of Baba. What's the name of this river? Anyway, I'm not going to go there. Godavari, I think. Anyway, this is a piece that I added. And so I had to create this photograph and this painting on this piece of paper that I added. And you can see I'm not quite finished. So that's what's happening with some of these lines. I'm trying to blend that line where it separates. This is working real good right here. I can just do a little more here and you can hardly see it in the sky. But obviously I had so much fun bringing this one because it's such a dramatic and, to me, romantic photograph of Baba dipping his hands in the water. And so another thing you can do is the photo, because of the motion in the original photo, the water looks like it should in a photograph. It's all blurred and everything. So you can have a little fun when you're doing a painting with the water dripping off. You can even put little places where the droplets are hitting the water down here. So here we are with this pink that we were using a second ago. This Baba is a little bit orange, a little bit brown. So I'm just going to take a hint, just a hint on the lip and humanize it just a little bit. Warm it up, not so much humanize it, but the pink is amazing. Even if you think the brown looks great, the pink adds just a humanization, just a little. You can't tell much difference, but I'm seeing it here close up. I'm seeing a big difference. All right, let's see what else we got over here. Oh, here's a little pile. You can see I am fairly obsessive about painting. Anybody wants to flash a question on the screen? That was where I went with the markers a minute ago. Feel free. This is an old photo that I did. I had a little sketch pad. I think I was at the center. And I was practicing drawing Baba from scratch without using a photograph at all. And I did this little page of him. I did a little landscape on the other side. I was working on. But I'm bad to never throw things like this away, even though it may be incomplete. I realized with this process the other day when I was going through my notepads, all I have to do is coat this with that material and I can have some fun with this. I can add color easily, and maybe one or two of these will be worthy of cutting out and putting on a button or something. Here's something for y'all in stages. This is an early one. Some of you have seen this. What I do here is obviously Quaker Oats. The only one I can get a good flat copy of is the one they have at Costco, which is 2.5, 3 pounds. I don't know what it is, maybe 4 pounds. And it has a good unblemished Quaker Oats dye on it. You can see I've already taken the hair and changed it here. You can see I'm just started on the nose, elongating the nose. I've made Quaker Oats guy's hair. I leave the hat usually. I adjust the eyebrows. Okay. And here's another one. And you can see the top of the box is bent here. So these are kind of freebies I give away or I send to people. They're delighted by them. It's quite funny. Now, here's what I've done. You can see I'm messing with the type. This says Quaker Oats, obviously, and I'm taking the Q and I'm masking it out and I'm turning it into Waker and getting rid of the oats. So, and you can see I've started to do that here. And the Baba in this is getting pretty close. You can see his hair, his eyes are looking pretty much like Baba's. So this just needs a little bit of adjustment. Here's another one that I have not done the type to, but you can see this one is even closer to looking like Baba. And this is all with marker and that material that I paint on here, the ground. Here's this photograph of Baba I found. I don't even know where it came from or where it is, but it's obviously 40s. It's at some type of probably old temple. I was going to say archaeological site, but there was some excavation going on in the photograph. And I had to study the photograph a long time to see what this actually was. And Baba's sitting on some steps here, obviously. And there's some excavation going on the side. I think I did a really nice job with the background, the landscape background on this. But the photograph that I was working with was pretty rough. That's why you don't recognize this photograph. It's a little out of focus and a little rough. But I'm having some issues with the coat, but I'm getting there, as you can see. I like the brightness of the Sadra, the pajama bottoms. Baba's feet are coming along nicely in the sandals. He's holding his alphabet board at an angle where I'm not sure what I can do with it except leave it to your imagination. And I haven't done that much on his face. I've got the basic structure in his face. Now I just need to crisp it up. The hair's pretty good. I just need to make it a little wavy, and then this one will be done. And this is like an 8x10. Here's a small one. This is a good example of a rescue. Here's a picture of Baba. You can see, I don't know if you can see that line there? You can see it real well. This, like an idiot, I cut through something with an X-Acto knife and cut the photo of Baba. I was mortified. I kept it. It was years ago. And not because I thought I could do this, but I did it because I can still see Baba. I can use it for my painting, even if it has a cut down. So it wasn't cut all the way through. So then I came across it the other day. I mounted it onto this piece of foam core and I started painting it. And I thought that perhaps, see at this angle, you can't really see the cut very much at that angle. So I'm hoping that with a little sanding and a little gentle work, I can turn this into a nice photo of Baba. Here's an old photo from the 70s, a drawing of Baba, not a photo. This is a drawing of Baba that I did on my trip to India, I believe, one of my trips to India. It came out really nice. I was pleased because it was all just freehand. Well, I came across it the other day, and it's just sitting in a folder because it's not dynamic enough to frame. And so I decided I'm gonna paint it. So I painted in this creamy iridescent pinkish background, and now I'm gonna go in and make Baba's flesh lifelike and paint the pillows a little bit. So this has that material on it. It's scratching. So it's just not like sandpaper. I don't think you can do your nails with it, but it's definitely got a grit to it, which allows it to take colored pencil, marker, crayon, pastels, and things. Here's another one I just started, a small one. The smaller they are, actually, the more difficult they are because you really have to use more markers and keep your colored pencils quite sharp. So this is one that I started to be in danger of losing. It was a faded image of Baba. One I also didn't like that much when I was young, but now I absolutely love this image of Baba. And I get to work on the hands. I get the place, the eyes are looking right at you. So this is a blast. And you can see I'm about halfway done. I painted out the figures in the background, put blue sky, worked on the pink coat. There's some parts I didn't work on at all, like this piece of a blanket. But I've got the basics are there. Going back for those that have joined late, I am coating the photographs with a material that is called pastel ground. Okay, it's similar to gesso in that it has a little bit of tooth, but it has much more tooth than gesso, and it's clear. Okay, so when you gesso something, you painted it white, or if you use black gesso, you painted it black. I can't do that on these photographs. I needed something clear that would be gritty.
What brand do you like?
Beginning, well, that stuff I mix myself actually. You can get it from Gold.
Wait, you're breaking up.
Found out how to make it sizzle. Oh, I'm sorry. My computer's getting low. I'm near the end thing. Can you see me now?
Yeah, better.
Hello? Okay. Golden makes a good one if you want a quick fix on that. It's marble dust or pumice dust mixed with acrylic medium. It gives you a Sandology. Okay. Here's another one that's only about half done. I painted in Baba's shirt, Baba's coat, and I painted in the flesh tones on the hand and now I've luckily this series is really nice because there's figures behind Baba that have to be painted out, just some subtle shadows. Here's one of my very favorites of Baba, and I've always enjoyed painting out the background and putting in North Carolina landscapes. And this one's about halfway. Come again? This one's about halfway done. I need to work a little more on the Sadra and get the flesh tones a little more human and do a little realistic mountain scene behind it. Let's see this.
Can I ask you a question?
Please go ahead. I maybe I've got about 10% of my juice left on my computer. I should plug it in.
Okay. I scan a lot of pictures, photos, and my computer, and I'm using inkjet paper because do you scan stuff that doesn't clog up? Because any good paper you can't do. So I've been like playing around after I make a painting and then I go back and work on it. Then that ground stuff would be really good, right?
Absolutely. You need anything that comes out of a printer needs to be prepared for painting. So
that's what I have to work on,
because the paper that inkjet paper is garbage. So as soon as you put this ground on it, you've like created a seal that is no longer acidic. This pastel ground creates a seal between any acidic, like even newspaper you could paint on, and it's not going to continue to go yellow and brittle.
Well, that's really a good thing to know.
It is a very good thing.
Yeah.
Because I have plenty of older pieces that are so fragile from the acidity of the paper. They've been framed wrong. The ladies at the MAC can really tell you some horror stories about things that have been done on acidic paper that just they're brittle, they just fall apart. So I've been very conscious of that, having been a picture framer in Hawaii for 12 years, about archival materials, making sure these paintings last as long as they can. I've also stopped mounting pretty much. I'm moving that way on paper products. No foam core, no mount board, and no heavy cardboard, because these things are all paper-based and will tend to warp. These days I am using Gator board, which is a Gator board, yes, which is a foam board product that is easily 2 or 3 times as strong as foam core. I am literally trying to bend this for you. It's not, it looks like foam core, but it is very rugged. And this is only 3/16. When you get into larger sizes of this, I'm hoping to do some display panels for the Mac on this material, which is pretty much indestructible and it's very lightweight. Look at this. I mean, it's
Is it archival? Is it archival?
When you seal it with the material, it becomes archival. Yes.
Can you send a copy of the formula that you use to make the ground?
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. You can email me at Roger B. Stevens.
Wait, hold on.
ROGER B.
Stevens.
STEPHENS.
Oh, wait, hold on. I got to redo that. Okay.
Roger B. Stevens at Yahoo.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad I tuned in.
And also, if you're on Facebook, you can contact me through Messenger easily.
I don't
Facebook
like
friend.
Facebook.
Well, I know, but anybody that's a Baba lover, I add to my. I don't do anybody, but I do Baba lovers.
Well, I'm a Baba
I have
lover.
lots more stories. If y'all feel free to ask any questions you want. I don't know how much time we have left. I've stopped wearing my wristwatch on the advice of my chiropractor in Myrtle Beach.
Roger,
Already.
Are you
Roger,
living in
what's-
Are you living in Myrtle Beach?
No, I have a condo there, and I do a lot of I do a lot of artwork when I'm there. In fact, right now I've completely redecorated my condo, which is at Ocean Creek next to the center. It's completely full of Baba painting. We're talking 50 Baba paintings, and a lot of them are small. I do you can see a lot of this work is quite small, but it's blissful for me now. I don't have to worry about who rents my condo anymore. They're going to get it.
Well, I'm renting a condo this winter at Land's End Resort, December
Oh,
through
yeah.
May. So I'll
Roger-
run into you. Yeah.
Roger, there's an earlier question that was, does alcohol erase the paint markers?
Yes, somewhat. Yes. It erases them a lot worse when they're fresh. You can definitely dissolve off the paint markers immediately with alcohol, if that's the reason for asking that. The
So I
paint
heard you
mark-
use alcohol. Why are you using the alcohol to clear the?
to erase. I'm using
Okay.
colored pencil for a lot of the work. You can see the
Oh, okay.
strokes of it. And so if I want to blend the colored pencil, or if I want to remove some colored pencil, I take a Q-tip or a clean rag and remove it with 70% alcohol. It works like a liquid eraser. Now, it also works for the paint markers, but it doesn't work as effectively because the colored pencil work is subtle anyway. So when you remove it, it's subtle also. The paint markers should be the last step of the process. Uh-oh, I think you lost me.
No.
No, we
Okay,
didn't.
I'm on real low power now. How's our time, Claire?
We're doing good.
How much more time? I need to plug in my computer if y'all will give me a second.
Yeah, go do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Well, my thing just said battery low too. Okay.
Just so we all know, there's going to be another meeting in about 25 minutes. So,
Oh, okay.
What's
So
that gonna be?
we'll try and wrap up here soon.
okay.
And also to let you know, this will be moved to a Baba Zoom on the Mac Baba Zoom channel. So you can
Yes.
watch it over again from the beginning.
Mhm. And I will be sure to have Roger email me a list of the materials that he's recommending so that I can put it in the description on the YouTube video.
Oh, thank
The
you.
Mac
Thank you very
website.
much.
Can you put the Mac? I think I have the Mac website because I visited it and I think I'm on their email now. Yeah.
Claire, does Roger ever teach on Baba Zoom?
This is the first time that we've had him. But
Oh
I'm
my
hoping
God,
that-
he
but
is
I'm-
so exciting. I hope, I mean, I don't know how to paint, but I am artistic. But I've been working with Baba's pictures from the glow, and I just happened to listen to this, and Roger, you filled me up with passion and excitement.
Oh, that's what I wanted. If I even got
Is
through
there
to one
any
person,
chance
that's
you
what I
can,
want.
Roger, is there any chance you can teach on Baba Zoom?
I can do it. You know, if it's no harder than this, I can do it. I just have been resistant, to tell you the truth. I'm not all that
Busy.
social. I'm more social, I think, than I think I am in my mind. But
You
the main
sound
thing I want to
social.
do, the main thing I want to do is sit here and paint. I'm serious, folks. I'm not just saying that for the Zoom. So I can easily do this again. And if especially if there's one part of the process that needs further explanation, not to mention the next time I do it, I'll have a whole bunch of new ones. And I can also, I had hoped to do literally a demo, but I got so excited and showing you examples that I didn't really get to the demo part. Now we do know that this was coated, and you can see in the light here, the little bit of color that I added around Baba's mouth.
Yeah.
Okay? So remember that when you get to this point, don't freak out. This is the most important thing. And this was one of the things that I carried all through my teaching career. People think they ruin things. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, I effed this up. Oh, I screwed it up. I had to start over. All these kinds of things. And they're just your ego. Okay. You got to remember that. We are expecting miracles when we do this. It may not happen the first time, but when it does, trust me, when you see Baba come out of that photo better than it was, you'll be sold. You'll be sold. It's just so exciting. I can't even tell you. And it turns these old photos into works of art. You know, we at the Mac, we talk about the difference between photos and works of art. Well, I'm blurring that one right now. Because these photos are for me are becoming works of art. And they're only works of art because I feel like they're still photos, but I feel like I've been involved in the process. I feel like I've gotten to enrich the photos. It doesn't feel like I'm coloring pictures. I feel like I'm painting a Baba painting with a whole lot of information already provided. So that's been really exciting. I guess you're picking up on that excitement, enthusiasm.
Oh, absolutely.
Can I share something that I just
Yeah,
finished?
absolutely, Roger.
Thank you.
Can I share something that I just finished in the middle of the night? And
Sure.
it's an ongoing thing. Let me see if I reverse the camera. I don't know. Let me see. Not the way to show it, I think. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
I-
Yeah. Well, these techniques are perfect for that kind of work.
That's why I'm so glad I tuned in.
Oh
But
my
what I-
gosh. Okay, so
What
I
I-
can do
what I
this.
did is I photographed it in stages so I wouldn't ruin it. So I
Oh
had,
no,
I,
that's great.
yeah, I
It's wonderful.
photocopied each one. Yeah. But the
So-
end, yeah, it's fun, right? Yeah. I'm
One of
glad
the
I
thi-
met you, right?
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to do was on another session, I actually tried to do this at the Southeast Gathering, and that was to have a session on collage and photo restoration. And it kind of just turned into similar to this. But what I'd like to do is, it's nice that you showed that piece because I do things like that. Here, for example, is a real special way that you can blend that with your most sacred treasures. When I was in Myrtle Beach it was before the pandemic, and Betty Grant died. Y'all remember that? She was a Myrtle Beach resident, longtime resident, wrote a Baba book. Very special. I had some powerful Baba experiences associated with her, but I ended up bringing a lot of her stuff to the MAC as a donation. Anyway, during that process, I was helping David and Sally Katz clean out her apartment. And there was just you know how you imagine someone doing that at your house. Okay. So you can imagine what it was. I mean, you could tell things that were precious somewhat, but then there would be piles of photographs, snapshots at Merzai, and pictures of her with the Monley and this and that. Well, mixed in there, we were going through trying to decide what things the Mac could use. She had wonderful videotapes and audio tapes. I found a snapshot of Baba. It was a snapshot because I could see that it had not been reproduced professionally. It was a snapshot, this size, little white border. And I couldn't tell. I assumed it was a photograph of a photograph, a snapshot of a photograph. The longer I looked at it, I'd never seen the photograph that it was photographed of. So she was in India a number of times and she may have photographed this photograph, but I've never seen it. So I kept that and I cut it out very carefully. And I made this Baba bud from it. And this is the kind of thing I want to show you that's possible with my process. I simply painted out the photograph, the Baba bud, carefully cut out Baba out of that little snapshot, mounted it on here, and then cleaned up the edges so that I can wear it without too much funkiness. And to me, it is by far my favorite Baba bud. So I think it's a very good chance that it may have been a real snapshot of Baba, because I feel such power from this. I don't recall this photograph. So anyway, that's the kind of thing you can do with these processes. The next time I do one, I'm going to talk about gluing and mounting and layering of photographs, which is another part of this process, which allows you to get more unusual. The reason I limited this is the results that I'm getting from these straight photographs being turned into color images is majestic and special without having to mix images of Baba, without having to make up anything, but just striving to capture as much of what I think Baba looked like as I can. And to me, some pictures are definitely improved by this process where you read they're humanized or something. They're more accessible. Oh, I didn't mention much about Pondy earlier. I meant to. Pondy was what they call Baba's artist or Baba's photographer, and he lived in Ahmednagar. And he took many of the really great photographs of Baba, and he would also produce them in his little shop, and they were available. The early days in India, those were the photos that were available were from Pondy. He also would take photographs and mount them on fiberboard, like masonite. Ouch. Some of the stuff that Peter wants, never mind. The panels that are like blackboard material. And he would paint oil paintings because there was no acrylic in those days. And you've seen some of his large samadhi photos. And he does, he had a classic way of doing the landscaping, and it looks very Indian, you might say. But I recently had a chance to restore one of those for Rabia. She had bought it at the gathering. It had been donated by someone, an original oil painting of the Samadhi by Pondy. And because I was good friends with Pondy and he gave me materials and set me on my way in the early days, 1973, I knew I could restore because I learned that in Hawaii. So I restored this for Robbie. And while I did, I got a really good chance to look at his technique. And it was all oil painting, of course. And I realized that in my painting, we worked very similar, but that I had a lot more education on values, on toning things down and bringing things forward. So he literally gave me my first art supplies. He was the first master painter. He was the first Baba painter. I hadn't even met Lin I don't think. Maybe I had. But he was very influential. And he used thinned out oil paintings. They used to call them Marshall photo oils. For those of you old timers among you might remember those. You could actually buy little tiny tubes of oil paint and paint your photographs with it. This was back in the 20s and 30s and 40s in America. Then I got into working with the acrylics, and the acrylics aren't that good on photographs because they're so dominant and they're so solid. They're unworkable once you get them on there. So obviously, having a lifetime background, I also knew oil painting. And I always used oil painting for very careful modulation of skin. But I'm such a slash bang rapid fire maniac. I preferred acrylic because I could do acrylic painting. I could do one a day. That's the kind of, those of you that know me have seen this side of me. I can't wait for it to dry, that kind of thing. So I got away over the years from oil painting, but now have returned because they give me phenomenal colors in Baba's skin that I didn't have before. This is a straight one. This is not from a photograph. This is one of my paintings, and this is an oil. And I love the way I can, just with a flick of the wrist, change expression stuff, change the lips and things. So you see, I can paint Baba without painting photographs, but I love the way that he abbreviates the whole process in photographs. I don't have to try to create anything that's not already there. I just have to enhance it. This is one of mine too. This was before I did photographs. This is one of my paintings, and this is Mastery and Servitude. Has all the symbols. But the technique I'm doing now is not so great on big stuff like this. So I laid out a bunch of stuff, and I've been through most of it. It literally piles up in my studio because my whole life, here's another confession, I've been a great initiator, but a terrible completer. So I end up with piles of artwork everywhere that I started years ago And I knew it was a good idea, but I just kind of got other ideas in the meantime. One of the things interesting, since I'm carrying on and now I've got some juice on my computer and y'all aren't leaving me here, is I took this is a fun thing. Any of you that are doing art projects for stimulation, and not by for your own soul recreation. I always had to mention this when I talk to artists because they want to market things. I'm not into marketing. These are amazing gifts, and that's all that really matters with our family, right? I mean, who cares about a few dollars? The paintings I have available in Myrtle Beach are like $50 paintings, so it's like there's no money in this. But what I want to show you is this is a wooden panel, and you can get these. These are coasters. And during the pandemic, I wasn't getting out much, and I needed something to keep my ideas going. And you can see in the background back over there, a baba that's all fall leaves, and baba kind of comes out of it. So over my shoulder, I don't know if y'all can see that, but I'm always trying to come up with new ways of portraying baba. And obviously I want to be so fluent, I guess is a better word, in drawing baba that I can't draw it enough. I feel like I can't draw and recall baba's face enough. I'll know when I have, because he's already popping in faster, but I want him there really fast. And I'm pretty sure that came from, I was 18 years old, and a young man had come to baba at our house in Miami, and he was gung-ho for baba. He was a little bit younger than me, so he must have been 16. I was about 18. He got a brain aneurysm and died in 2 days. And his parents were devastated, and they had just found baba too. And I know what that was about, because it was baba. As soon as he found baba said, I got work for you over here. And you can't say that to his parents, and not to mention it's a kind of a glib thing to say anyway. So I just was trying to be helpful, and I said I was 18. I said things like, "Oh, he's with baba now," and the mom was like, "Well, I wish he was here." Yeah, it was heavy for me. But one of the things I remember was the boy's father was an illustrator, and I was 17 or 18. I knew I wanted to be an artist or an illustrator. This guy had a lifetime, and he had a pad of paper. He was at our house. This may have been before his son died. And with a marker, he drew a gorgeous picture of baba in about 8 seconds, I guess. And it was a picture of baba looking off to the side, and below with his mustache. And then, anyway, unbelievable. And he wasn't even much of a baba lover, but man, what an artist. And I loved that so much. And I remember, even though that was over 50 years ago, I still think about, I'm getting close to that. I can make a baba in a few seconds and hand it to somebody. And that is something I tried to do for 50 years, and now it's there. And what do I do with it now? Anyway, let's see. I was getting on to one other thing. What was it? A lot of times, I mentioned earlier about the importance of framing. So those of you that are doing arts and crafts things, when you go to thrift stores, I highly recommend this. Anybody that's into craft things. Thrift stores don't have a lot of stuff for artists, but they have picture frames, and no one is buying them, you'll find. Because the funkier they are, the less people want them to put their postcard art in. So I found some remarkable picture frames at thrift stores, and they range from about $2, $3 to $5, $6. And I do a little work on them, and I've got something ready to go for my finished picture. So this was a mat that came in a piece that a thrift store thing right here. And it's got lovely little lace on it. See there? And it's got a hand cut bevel in it. So I know this was done by a pro, but it was in a picture. I think it was a picture of someone's saying or something. So I found the picture for it. And this is another Hermes reject uh-oh, this might be the real thing. But anyway, this is what I'm going to do with it. And I'm going to keep it very subtle, not highly colored, because this is such a black and white thing, but I want to bring color into Baba's face here. It's the only thing it really needs. I may even leave the chinchilla coat the way it is in the background and just do the skin tones in the portrait. So that kind of shows you that oftentimes I will start with the picture frame, which is really strange. If you had told me that when I was a young man, I would say that's BS. You know, I say, oh, you want pictures that match your couch? You know, I'd say something like that. Questions, guys? When are we going to do this again?
How
Claire,
about
what
next
do you think?
Saturday?
Well, that may be a little soon, but also what I'd like to get from this, Claire, you're going to see a lot of the responses, right?
Yeah.
If you see anything that they wish I'd done more of, I could do something where I'm not trying to get through the whole mess in one thing.
Yeah, and I'll pass that along to you. I did want to let you know though that at 1 o'clock, they have another program going
Okay.
on. So if we want to continue, Diana's going to open up a break room for us if anyone wants to keep on with this, because this has been
I'm tired.
absolutely delightful.
I'm tired. I skipped breakfast and drank too much coffee. So, but I can easily do this because it really is a lot like what I did for a living. I mean, that's a typical, something I might give my students.
Mhm. Well,
But I had to keep it, for non-artists somewhat. So I hope you all got something out of it. I really do.
well, thank you guys so
and if
much,
you're
and thank you,
inspired-
Roger.
Main
Yeah.
thing I want
Thank
you to
you,
do,
Roger.
if you love coloring, this is where you need to go. I'm telling you.
Very
This-
good. Thank you so much.
Thank
Did
you,
you-
Jay Baba.
Thank you. And
Hey,
I
Bob.
just put my email in the chat if anyone wants to email me. Roger also gave his email out as well. So oh my gosh, this has just been absolutely incredible.
Oh, thank you so
Roger,
much.
and thank you
I
everyone
was so
for joining.
trepidatious. I was so trepidatious because I didn't practice it or anything until this morning. That's when I set up the camera and all this. And I said, I knew Bob was going to get me through it though. He was he was laughing every time I got trepidatious. You know how that is when you're afraid of something and you see him backward going.
Well, you did beautifully.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And I'll do it
Hello to
again.
Wanda.
Of course.
Thank you, Roger. Fantastic. Thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank
so
you.
much. Jay Baba.
Jay Papa.
Wait, don't take away the chat yet. Hold on.
Okay. I don't know if I can do that. Here we go.
Okay, I got it in. Okay.
All right. You ready?
Wonderful.
Thank you all so much for your support.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
Thank you, Roger. Jay
Bye.
Baba.